limit your exposure to bad video. Secondly, pre-record the segments of your event where you're broadcasting a video conversation. There may be legitimate reasons why you need to broadcast a low latency video connection live. For example, if you require a live feedback interaction with the audience. If you don't, it may be wise to pre-record this segment, which gives you the ability to get better quality video, which could possibly be edited if there are any mistakes or video dropouts. Thirdly, ensure key presenters have better quality video recording and broadcasting equipment. The success of your events may be dependent upon certain key presenters. If they cannot be at the central location, then try and ensure that they have access to better quality video production. This might involve them traveling to a studio close to them, or it may involve providing them with better cameras, lighting, audio, perhaps a backdrop that they can record their presentation independently. Even if it is part of a live video conference conversation, this can be edited for a later simulated live broadcast. Now let's talk about broadcasting and the live or the simulated live question. The subject of whether your event should be broadcast live or pre-recorded and broadcast at a simulated live event is highly connected to the structure of your event. Having bad video can be a make or break for an online event. Therefore, this is a consistent question that the Sardius team discusses with our clients. There are a number of pros and cons to each approach. Let's talk about live. But it is these very limitations that make live events popular. It creates a psychological buzz, it results in bigger audiences, and it creates the ability to create finances through mechanisms like pay-per-view. You only have to look at the audiences for live sporting events to realize that there is a massive benefit in watching live versus the simulated live broadcast several hours later. Now, even outside of the sporting realm, live broadcasts have a certain cachet that results in bigger audiences, and despite the inherent risks involved, which we'll talk about, they give you some opportunities that are not available with simulated live or video on demand. These largely boil down to live audience engagement. And this includes interaction with questions from the audience who are posting in chat or via video conferencing, the ability to poll or to ask your audience questions and get in-the-moment responses. The risks connected to live broadcasting are related to two main factors. The first of these is the unpredictable and complex nature of an event schedule, which can mean a much bigger production budget to ensure that there are no errors in the broadcast. Secondly, the reliability of your broadcast setup, which may include all your video conferencing connections, but it's mainly related to your video streaming encoding solution and your internet connection. While Sardius can and does work with many encoding solutions, there are a few that we recommend depending on the nature of your event. These include Resi, Haivision, Telestream, and a few more that we can talk about. If you're unfamiliar with the world of web streaming, it may be advisable for Sardius to handle the streaming portion of your event. For one-off events, we will typically use Resi as our live streaming partner due to the resilience of their streaming protocol in many event situations. One of the most frustrating possibilities in a live streamed event is the audience having to deal with buffering issues. Mitigating the possibility of buffering is something we advise repeatedly and believe one of the best ways to do this is by using HLS streaming, simulated live. Despite the cachet that's involved in live streaming, this may not be the right way for you to go for a number of reasons. Live broadcasts, if done well, can often cost more in terms of video production and streaming and can cause you a lot of stress due to the inherent risks involved. Some thrive on this risk, others don't. Another approach can be to pre-record your program and then broadcast it as if it's live. This is often called a simulated or sim live broadcast. If you are not interacting live with your audience and there is no difference between what your live broadcast would look like and a broadcast that is pre-recorded, there are a number of benefits. Added to the reduced risk and potentially reduced cost, it also gives you an opportunity to broadcast at times that are convenient for your audience across different times of the day and even different time zones. Simulated live broadcasts also give your presenters an ability to interact in real time with the audience within the chat window, which can actually make an extremely compelling experience. They are presenting by video, but they are responding in real time in chat. Let's talk about copyrights for a moment. It's important in building your event that you have the correct permissions to broadcast the content your schedule dictates to your audience for the duration of the time that you wish to broadcast. This means it's important, if you intend to live broadcast and keep the archive of the session afterwards, that you have the correct permissions of the on-camera individuals. If you're broadcasting music, it's important that you obtain the correct performance and broadcast permissions ahead of time. If you need help navigating this, you can talk with your Saudi's event manager who can point you in the right direction. Let's talk about user interface features for a moment. Every organization has internal language, behaviors, assumptions, and personalities. Operating within an organization for an extended period can blind you to such internalized communication. Yet this can be confusing to visitors and new attendees to your event. There are simple methods of presenting information that can provide clarity and context to your event and which can orient your audience to help them quickly understand what is going on and ultimately help them understand you. These components include bios. Who is presenting now? Why should I listen to them? How can I connect with them through social links and other web calls to action? And how does their inclusion in the event add to the overall purpose of the event? Saudis typically recommends you include headshots, bios, and links to your presenters. And we can provide the total list of presenters or pop-out modals, which will change throughout the event as your presenters on stage change. Secondly, the schedule. Providing a clear schedule for the event is a must. We typically do this two ways, with an at-a-glance approach as well as providing an interactive timeline under the main video player, which progresses throughout the event and gives the ability for the audience to see where they are at within the context of the whole event. Calls to action, or CTAs, are highly related to your main purpose and the metrics of success for your event. These should generally be decided ahead of time. You shouldn't overload your audience with CTAs, but they are super helpful in being clear with your audience about what you would like them to do, so don't leave them out. And once they're determined, you can include them in many parts of the event and the event platform, from presentations in the main session, to linked overlays, to handouts, to things in the chat window. However, within the main watch experience, this might take the form of prominent text, graphics leading to a landing page, which can help your audience respond in an appropriate manner. So these are just some of the things that you need to think about as you create a clear, effective production of your online event. Let's go through the checklist. this session, we want to take some time to discover how you can get your audience involved in the event. After all, this is one of the reasons to use a customized online platform. Providing customized communication opportunities throughout the event, both from you to the attendees, between the attendees, and from the attendees back to you, is highly desirable to keep audience engagement high and for everyone to achieve the objectives they have throughout the event. Sardius provides a number of options for these purposes. Firstly, moderated chat and watch parties. Providing your audience with the ability to chat as a group or as a smaller geographic or affinity-based watch parties has become an expected feature in recent years. We've already mentioned the pitfalls of having too many attendees in a chat window and the rationale for watch parties. However, to get the most out of this feature, it's helpful to think intentionally about how you would like attendees to interact, rather than allowing the unmoderated Wild West, unproductive, and sometimes downright nasty comment sections many will intentionally avoid, or some websites. And for your comfort, because we provide moderated chat, we both flag and mute offensive language and provide moderators the ability to mute trolls so that they can continue their trolling behavior to their heart's content, oblivious to the fact that they have been placed in a cone of silence. We believe intentional chat includes the following. Firstly, using presenters, pastors, subject matter experts as moderators. This gives the presenter the ability to guide the conversation and ask and answer specific questions. Secondly, guided conversation. You've hopefully already figured out the why of your event. Chat used effectively can forward these goals. If you're in a watch party with an affinity group with a subject matter expert moderating, this can be an opportunity for an enriching conversation. It's even an opportunity to network in a way that is more natural around mutual interests versus awkward, cold, open conversations. It may be that from such a productive chat that the moderator decides to open up a video conference room and the group can continue the conversation in a face-to-face setting. Direct messaging with the moderator. We'll address attendee-to-attendee networking later on, but one option that has proved effective is for private direct messaging to the moderator for a number of reasons. It may be that the moderator or the on-screen presenter has asked for questions, and this can be facilitated through the direct messaging feature. It may also be that the attendee has a private counseling or prayer needs that the moderator can take offline with the attendee. Sardius generally provides moderated training as part of our bespoke events, as we believe in the potential of this tool if used correctly. Other tabs and integrations in the sidebar. While much interaction can happen around the chat between the attendees and the event host, the sidebar is a critical area of event interaction that is not limited to simply chat. Different tabs on the sidebar can add different types of interaction depending on the type of meeting that you're hosting. Examples of other tabs that we've done might be an integration with an online Bible, might be notes for church meetings, might be a giving portal. We've even done a kind of a cool retro game that we've included in there for when people are kind of bored. We put this Pong game there. But there's many other things that we can do. Polls and trivia is a crucial area in that area that we've built out. These are just a few ideas, but try us out and see how else you can interact with your audience and bring value to your event. Downloadable content. Conferences are a great place to point people to buy other content through commerce links and integrations. However, many want to give conference attendees other accompanying materials that complement the different sessions of the conference. So these might be ebooks or handouts that highlight certain training topics. They may be other audio or video content that take the attendee deeper into a certain topic that communicates added value to the attendee who's at the event, and can be delivered as part of the platform rather than the presenter simply referencing the resource but not giving the audience an easy on-ramp to actually access the content. Typically, we have that around the video window, so it's an easy click to download that content. Polls and trivia. One of the benefits of live broadcasting your event is the ability to directly engage with the audience in real time. This means that the audience can ask you questions in real time, but it also means that you can ask questions of the audience and then interact with those answers. This may be through traditionally polling on issues that are important to your mission, or it may even be through trivia competitions where there is a prize at stake. Keeping your audience on their toes through a degree of gamification may not be the worst idea in the world. Overlays. In many event scenarios, it's helpful to include a degree of video graphics over the video. This might be lower thirds describing who is speaking now. It might be a logo placed at the top corner of the video. It might be a call to action for giving campaign. It might be a call to buy a product, the latest book of the speaker. While it looks good to include these graphics, it's also helpful if such overlays can include a hyperlink to the specific call to action that is being highlighted at that particular moment. The Saudis platform offers the event producer the ability to schedule such hyperlinked overlays or simply to trigger them in the moment when the call to action is happening. Even if the trigger is spontaneous, such overlays need forward planning and creating so that the presentation can be seamless. In some events, you may have already created custom animated graphics that are already embedded within the video. It's still possible to make such graphics interactive by creating transparent hyperlinks to place over the in-video graphics. So these are just a few of the ideas of how you can get this interactivity between your audience, yourself, and between your audience. We'll cover networking in a future session, but let's go over the checklist now. Up to this point, we have envisaged either an entirely on-site, an entirely online, or a hybrid event. However, there is another option that has become increasingly popular, and that is to offer physical or online host sites. What's a host site? A host site may be a home, a church, an office, or any other location where attendees can gather in smaller groups to participate in the event. Providing an excellent host site experience, like every other component of a world-changing event, needs intentionality. We will leave the hospitality and the in-person network elements to one side for now, and focus on the broadcast and the online components. The first thing that is important to ensure at your host site is that you have good video and audio quality. This might be as simple as casting the video player onto a large TV screen in a home or an office. If you are projecting onto screens in a larger church building, let's say, it is advisable to ensure the picture quality is good enough and that the audio and the video are correctly synced before the event. At Saudis, we typically advise all attendees to log into the event maybe 15 or 30 minutes before the event to ensure that there are no issues with your device, keeping in mind that many problems faced online are solved by simply rebooting the device. It's advisable to allow time if this is needed. However, with larger host sites, we typically advise that it is good practice to do a host site test to iron out any technical niggles should they exist. Let's talk for a moment about the second screen experience which Sardius provides. With screencasting becoming an increasingly popular way of engaging with an event, especially within a host site context, the question is then asked how members of the host site can engage in some of the context-giving and interactive features of the online event, such as how attendees can find out details of who is presenting now, what is coming up, or how the host site audience can engage in chat or ask questions or respond to polls or trivia questions. The solution to this challenge has been the creation of a second event experience, which simply includes those interactive features and is built primarily for the mobile device. This can be used in host site situations as well as actually on-site in a physical in-person event, and gives you as the event producer the added benefit of obtaining better quality analytics from the event than simply receiving that one IP address which is casting on the big screen. Now you have all of the participants participating and you can get all of that data. Reaching a global audience, time zones and language. During the COVID-19 lockdown, many people have longed for the return of in-person events. There are certainly many benefits to being in the same physical location as other attendees. However, there are similarly a number of benefits that cannot be achieved with an in-person event. We've already addressed the ability for presenters to join the event from all around the world. And this global nature also applies to opportunities related to broadcasting of the event. If a hybrid event is taking place in, say, California, there would previously have been an expectation that if someone in Europe wished to join with that live event at 7 p.m., say in Los Angeles, they would have to be watching at 3 a.m. in London. Ugh. However, if your event has a sizable global audience, or if one of your metrics is to increase the number of global attendees, there are a number of adjustments you can effect to make the event more accessible to these global attendees. Number one, translate the broadcast. This can be done as an alternate audio stream or with closed captions. Secondly, translate the whole experience. This entire event experience can be translated into target languages. Not just the broadcast, but everything around it is translated into the target language. Thirdly, adjust the timing of the event. With the advent of Sim Live, it's absolutely possible to host the event in the desired time zone of a targeted global audience. So you may have it at 7 p.m. in Los Angeles, but you can also have another experience in London and another experience in Seoul, South Korea. So those are just a few of the things that you can do to engage your global audience and for you to think intentionally about how you can engage not only an American audience, but a European audience and an Asian audience. Networking is one of the principal goals of many events. The question of how you can effectively connect with the right people at the right time is something that Sardius is trying to perfect on an ongoing basis. There are often a number of motivations that attendees have in coming to events. For some who are power networkers, They are often there essentially to sell, whether it's themselves, their products, or even their ideas. For others, they are on a discovery mission to find the best solutions to their challenges. Some are highly motivated to meet with the people they need to meet with, and others want to simply lurk and not network at all. Satisfying the needs of all types can be a challenge. There are a number of solutions out there that provide a serendipitous type of networking that you may have at a physical event. We believe networking and the ability to exchange online business cards doesn't have to be this hit or miss experience and can be more intentional than that which can be found in in-person events. One component of networking in an online event is networking around ideas or on the basis of geographic location or affinity group. And we've already looked at this a little bit when we looked at watch parties in the main plenary sessions or breakout rooms. This is a great way to engage around ideas or unique challenges for individuals in geographic locations. And somebody says something that you like, and you can respond to them and actually network around those ideas. This is a great way of networking, and I might add, it's not really easy to implement that as a feature in a physical event. Another way to network is in the exhibition hall itself. The exhibition hall is known by various names: Expo, Sponsor Hall, Resource Center. This is a component of an event that can provide a main funding mechanism for the event producer. And in much the same way as a physical exhibition does, in the virtual experience that the Saudius platform provides, sponsors have the opportunity to upload promotional videos and other materials that they would often have at a physical booth, as well as including links to other online resources. The chat window on the sponsor page allows for general discussion and networking around the services that the sponsor offers in real time. And then people can go on to have further one-on-one video conversation. For further, more direct, intimate conversation, people can go into a chat room and talk one-on-one. So that's pretty much all there is for this section. So let's go through our checklist. While there are many benefits for event broadcasts to occur in real time with an audience experiencing the event at the same time, there are different benefits in both supplying an event with extra video-on-demand content. This may be extra content that you build into the event intentionally from the outset of the event, maybe content related to the main sessions and breakouts, and maybe related to different audience segments. Or it may be the post-event video on-demand content. It's helpful for you to give some thought regarding how you would like the event to look after the live portion of the event is over. The immediate purpose for video on-demand content is as a catch-up service so that your attendees don't miss the content that has just occurred. This may be through including a basic DVR functionality on the live player, or having video-on-demand archives available to access immediately after the session. For catch-up purposes, you will often find that people will access this archive content close to the event. However, this demand will often gradually tail off. While you can archive your content by event session 1, 2, 3, 4, if your event has a strong speaker lineup and subject flow, it may be wise to include video archives that can be organized by speaker, by topic, or by any other genre of metadata that you've selected. Our experience shows that even old archival content can be resurrected with new demand if placed in the right setting. If building a strong post-archive experience is something you want to achieve, it's important that when you're planning for the event, you ask the basic permissions that are needed for this to happen. On the Sardius platform, we will help you create what we call the quote-unquote post-event, which is what the event will look like to the event audience or any other audience who subsequently signs up to the event after it is finished. With this being the case, it's important to finish the event strongly and provide thought as to how you can maximize the benefit of the experience. Unlike an exclusively on-site, in-person event, a virtual event gives you the opportunity to create a more curated, ongoing experience for a much longer time after the actual live event has finished. Determining the right analytics. Now, this little part of our guide could have been placed near the beginning, as it goes hand in hand with determining your metrics of success. However, it is also typically the last part of the event. It's important with any event that you look back retrospectively and determine your successes and your failures, the areas that can be improved and the areas that need to be dispensed with in the future. With online events, it is in some ways easier to determine the level of engagement in each component of the event, as you have the ability to quantify to some degree how your audience engaged with each video and part of the event. There are a number of ways that Sardius sets up analytics. However, as with many aspects of the world-changing event, how you set up analytics is determined in many ways by what you need to see to establish whether the event has been successful. The analytics we receive are based on, firstly, player statistics. The built-in statistic engine on the Sardius platform is focused on stats around the video players in your event. This means that there are many and varied analytics around the demographics of who watched your video content, where they watched it from, on what device they watched it on, how long they watched it for, which content they skipped, and which they engaged in. In addition to those video player analytics, you can also get page analytics. We also have this ability to apply your Google Analytics account to different components of the event. This also includes your sponsor's ability to include their Google Analytics account on their sponsor experience, which gives you the ability to track page views versus player views. This can give you the ability to track how many individuals click through on certain calls to action. And some of these calls to action may be key to your key metrics in the event. Ultimately, there's no silver bullet to ensure without a shadow of a doubt that your event will be successful. There's inherent risk involved in pretty much everything in life. However, if you follow the steps outlined in this guide, you have a much greater chance of not only knowing what you want to achieve, but actually achieving it. Obviously, as the size and the complexity of your event grows, the checklists of tasks to complete the event successfully will grow. If you're already a Sardius client, our event management team is waiting to get into those many lists of tasks that have to be completed so that you will have a world-changing event. If you're not a client, our business development team is really open to having a conversation about whether Sardius is the right platform for you at this moment to take your event to the next level. No matter if you use Sardius or not, we're rooting for the success of your events and your organization. And I thank you so much for taking the time to go through this event guide. There's a reason why the framers of the US Constitution included the right of the people to peaceably assemble in the First Amendment. The reason is that history changes when people gather and exchange ideas. Be it the early church who gathered 2,000 years ago to the recent gatherings of the Arab Spring. Countries change, companies change, and individuals change when people gather, often providing the high watermarks of our lives. Just think about it. My bet is that your life has been changed by an event where people gathered, you exchanged ideas, and your life changed as a result. Well, hi, I'm John O'Hall. I'm with Sardius Media, and I want to take you on a journey over these next few videos to help you ask the right questions about your proposed event and ultimately get you the right answers. As you consider your upcoming event, you may not be thinking of an outcome as earth-shattering as those historical events I just mentioned. After all, you may only be planning your quarterly leadership gathering of your organization, the annual get-together. However, if you really want to achieve the change you so dearly would love to see in your organization or movement, perhaps the event you are planning can create the momentum that you so desperately need. You just need to be intentional about it, and that is what these videos and this guide is all about. Now, of course, I'm representing Sardius Media, and in these videos, it's a given that we're going to be leaning pretty heavily in the direction of what makes a great online event. However, I'm hopeful that the journey we go on will be helpful no matter what type of event you're putting on. The questions we ask throughout these videos will hopefully lead you to clarity regarding what you want to achieve and how you can achieve it. We'll move from one video to the next, from big picture questions to the more technical online aspects of your event. We're rooting for your event success and hope that the following video and guide will help you navigate these waters. I'm looking forward to our time together. Let's get into it. Often when you're starting to think about your event, you have something in your mind. Maybe it's a full room, a conference center, or a stadium buzzing with life and activity. And immediately, what typically happens is you go into planning mode to see how you can achieve that goal. But I want to encourage you to go back just a little bit further before we begin the planning phase and ask some more existential questions. So number one, I want to figure out your why. Whether you're having an in-person event or an online event, one of the first things you need to determine is what exactly the metrics of your success are in the event. These metrics are not primarily related to the number of people attending the event, although getting a big crowd may certainly be connected to your metrics. If you're hosting a product or a service launch, your ultimate goal will be related to the sales that are derived from this event. The amount of people who attend the event may therefore be a key indicator of success, but getting the wrong crowd that results in very few sales may lead you to adjust your strategy later on. In this regard, just getting the big crowd might make you feel good in the moment, but it would be more helpful for your team to talk about the real metric of sales and plan towards that particular goal. Now, if your goal is to communicate your vision to your super fans, your radical core audience, having a huge crowd with hundreds of thousands of people may surprisingly actually work against your main metric. If your audience wants to be addressed as if they are the only one that matters, including them just as one of the many thousands of the audience may be a bad idea. So I want you to think deeply about the metric of success, whether it's online or in person, and work with your team to achieve that particular goal. Now, let's translate some of these thoughts to putting on an online event. Now, in the TV industry, getting the eyeballs is a key indicator of success. Large numbers are also attractive to online broadcasters as they can result in advertising revenue. The strategy for engaging your audience online may be the same, simply gathering a big crowd. And if a simple big crowd is the objective, then maybe the right strategy is simply to go out on all the platforms like YouTube and Facebook. But if you're really honest with yourself and think about it, your goal is probably more than simply the eyeballs. And so when you think about it, there are some limitations to that strategy. Maybe you don't want to simply give away all your audience's data to those particular social media platforms. Maybe you want to serve them yourself. And that's why we're seeing the emergence of many OTT media platforms. Previously, you would watch content through the major media outlets, ABC, NBC, BBC, now Facebook and YouTube. And now the content makers are going, quote unquote, over the top to reach their markets directly. Think about Disney Plus, Discovery Plus, and the multitude of other niche brand video channels who are engaging their core audience directly. Getting to know who your core audience is, your super fans, your radical core, and engaging them around topics that are relevant to their life may be a more efficient and effective way to energize your people, who will then leave the event and immediately sell the vision to 10 more of their friends and therefore grow your superfan radical core. Now, choosing the right type of event is important. There are different types of people, there are different types of objectives, there are different types of events. It's important to understand the difference between meetings. In some meetings, you need to achieve deep collaboration between attendees, while other gatherings are about gathering as many people as you can to mobilize them behind a specific vision. Sometimes you need an intimate fundraising banquet, and other times it's a rock concert that you're after. There's no right type of event which is better than another, but it is important to recognize what you're trying to achieve and choose the right medium to communicate exactly what you need to. Now, there generally is a right type of event for what your present needs are, and you shouldn't spend a whole bunch of time and money and then later on realize that you've made a poor choice to achieve the desired goals. And so that is why I want to encourage you to be intentional in figuring out the right medium. The rationale and motivation for an online event is just as important as the rationale and motivation for an in-person physical event. There's not one type of online event that you have to go down. It's often possible to mimic the aspects of a physical in-person event when you're having an online equivalency. However, it's important to recognize the differences between online and in-person events. Simply being online means you are communicating in another medium, and while this offers many benefits over in-person events, there are similarly many elements that cannot and shouldn't be reproduced. Online communication is better for intense, effective, focused, interactive information sharing, as well as focused networking, one-on-one meetings. While physical events can be much better for creating space and time, more serendipitous networking, having meals, coffees, and walks. Similarly, you will never experience the intense, ear-bleeding, emotionally high experience of being in a mosh pit at a concert online. However, you can experience a perhaps more intimate, artistic experience through a broadcast feed. It's also important that you think in a correct manner about your financial budget. It is so possible for you to lose a significant amount of money in organizing a large-scale event. However, it is important also for you to consider the financial aspects in the right way. As with many endeavors in life, it's also important not to underestimate the potential financial benefits and use false economy in planning your event. Many of the components of a successful event will involve spending, and this includes your stage lineup, your production budget, or broadcast distribution budget. Often your event will only be as strong as the weakest link. For example, You may decide to go big on funding a high-end speaker or band and then skimp on the production budget. In most scenarios, this would be a bad decision. And the same is true for online delivery of your event. There are some amazing solutions being offered on the market at the moment, and it's important that you don't skimp on providing an amazing experience for your audience. Now, we have advised many event coordinators who are hosting large events, and often the first component that is considered is the lineup of presenters on stage. Maybe it's famous bands and speakers who will have the ability to gather a crowd. Gifted and charismatic stage personalities are great, and they may form a component of your overall strategy. However, it's imperative that before you invite any presenters, you are clear about your metrics and your narrative. Now, the narrative is the story behind your event, the reason why your audience will want to attend your event rather than the other events where the same speakers and the bands will be attending. Discovering your narrative is typically a process which begins with discovering your why in hosting the event and the why your attendees have for attending. Now, following tried and trusted methods of storytelling and communicating your narrative is helpful for both in-person and for online events. Thinking of your potential attendees as the hero of the story that you are inviting them into, and with you as the trusted guide, is ultimately helpful to all parties and the vision which you would like to invite the attendees into. It may be that you're giving your audience a unique experience and opportunity to get involved in the most life-changing movement. And if that is true, you need to recognize and find ways to communicate that vision that involves your audience. This narrative must be communicated through your event brand guide and your written and video communication as you promote your event. Now, while this is true of all events, it is helpful not to miss this element when it comes to planning your online event, and consider the unique online methods to respond to this narrative. Determining your stage lineup. Who can communicate your goals most effectively in spoken, written, or musical form? Often the impetus, even the existence of an event, comes from the lineup of speakers, subject matter experts, influencers, and musical artists. While this may be the main hook to gather a big audience, the simple ability to gather an attractional stage lineup should not determine your event. The why and the narrative should always come first. Individuals or groups who present or perform from your stage need to serve that particular vision and narrative. And if this doesn't happen, there is a possibility that you, your audience, and your guest speaker will come away from this event feeling used, and this lack of cohesion almost never achieves the worthwhile purposes for which you started out. Now, when considering either a hybrid or a completely online event, it's important to consider the different mediums of communication you're employing. A stage in front of 50,000 people in an arena versus small screens in front of 1 million people are two entirely different mediums. Although the latter is reaching a much bigger audience, a small screen is always a much more intimate medium and requires an approach where the audience is being addressed in a more direct, one-on-one manner, much like I'm doing now. When considering your lineup, also consider how you're going to communicate to both audiences most effectively, and consider how your lineup is going to do this. Audience engagement is important in both mediums of communication. Now, it's clear to all of us that the world was taken by surprise by the COVID-19 pandemic. And the one question that we've received more than any others throughout this time is predicated on the longing to return to in-person events, but then people say how things will change in a post-COVID world with regard to online events. And our response has long been that we also long for the return to in-person events that we're seeing now. However, online events are not going away. Even before COVID, the online component of events was increasingly in demand, and the complexity was also increasing. So this is an area you shouldn't ignore for too much longer. So that's pretty much all there is for this section. So let's go through our checklist. So you figured out the reasons why you're doing your event. The next thing you need to figure out is how to communicate what you're doing to your intended audience to ensure the right people are at your event. Although this is a little bit of a simplistic take, the human dynamics of any event remain pretty consistent, whether you're a nervous high schooler wanting to pull off the student event of the century, or gathering 80,000 into a football stadium, or hosting an online event of any size. It really is true if you get that school quarterback and cheerleader and their buddies, people start paying attention no matter what demographic you're trying to reach. The quarterback may be different for different audiences, and you may have to be ready to communicate these nuances in language that your particular audience understands and connects with. But outside of these communication differences, other dynamics are actually often the same. The bottom line is that getting people to an event typically revolves around a number of rather similar factors. So let's consider the reasons why people register, buy tickets, and eventually attend an event. And these things are things that you need to consider in your networking and marketing as you prepare for your event. Number one, people will come to see a VIP, a favorite musical act, an influencer, a subject matter expert. That stage lineup is important. Number two, people come to learn. They're going to be equipped at your event. Number three, often people will register to create memories and experience a unique moment of high emotion. That might be a rock band. Number four, for the networking opportunities, often at expo events. Number five, to support a cause. Number six, to be at the event of your tribe, your affinity group, the annual get-together. Number seven, because friends and colleagues are going to the event and people want to be there and belong to the group. Number eight, people go to be inspired and get a kickstart, a kick up the backside in a particular area. And number nine, people go to be entertained. Often the reasons why people eventually attend are a combination of a number of these factors, and even more mundane reasons can just nudge a person over that finish line into actually buying a ticket. Now, we've talked about marketing, and it may start with emotion, narrative, and vision, and these are all great things, but the mechanics of getting the right amount of people to your event are just that. Mechanics. And after a number of events, you will typically be able to estimate the percentage of people who will show up when comparing that to the number of people who have registered. So if you have a free event, it might be, we typically get 50 to 60 people, 60% of people who register who actually attend. Or if you have a paid event, it might be 85 to 95% of people. Also, the same dynamics of giving attendees a nudge to register with tools like giving a price break for early bird purchases, maybe a coupon code or an opportunity to be part of an exclusive component of the event, like a VIP group. They're seemingly mundane, but they can be surprisingly effective. Therefore, it's important to employ a number of marketing strategies when inviting your potential audience. Communicating both the high-level narrative that we've talked about, as well as these more mundane tool nudges on timing, cost, and exclusivity, which can get people over the edge, and so you know the number of people who are going to attend your event. The next question is, who do you want attending your event? As we've previously mentioned, it's important to narrow in on the goals of the event that dictate who should attend. The value of success isn't always determined by the number of people registering. The question is, do you want the people who are attending to maybe complete a particular action after the event? Do you want to inspire a certain demographic to do something as a result of the event? Answering this who question will dictate your marketing strategy and the critical criteria of success moving forward. Next, why attendees buy your tickets. Knowing that it is typical for a person to buy a ticket due to several factors, which we've mentioned, it's important that you are aware of the channels it will take to communicate those reasons to a particular audience so that they can hear your message and then register. These vary per organization, and therefore it's important for you to think about your own unique situation. But these typically include things like word of mouth, personal recommendations in any industry, in any vertical is typically the best way for people to join up. But we can combine with that other things, exclusive invitations, incentivizing a certain group to sign up. Maybe it's an influencer recommendation. It's not just a friend, but it's somebody who the particular demographic really recognizes and admires, who recommends people sign up is always helpful, and typically one of your best forms of marketing. Because one of the main reasons that many attend an event is because other people they know are attending, it's critical to get the mavens in a particular social group to sign up, those people who are early adopters. Number 2 channel, social media marketing. This has become such a pervasive way of communicating to today's generation. Providing value through social media channels is always a good precursor to then inviting the audience through normal posts or through paid advertising. And then number 3, your traditional advertising channels of TV, radio, print, pay-per-click, banner advertising can still be effective to reinforce your message. And getting all 3 of these channels to come together is often the way to get people across that finish line. It's also important to distinguish between the reasons people will buy a ticket or register for your event and the reason they will remember it. Your brand values and the reason they feel connected to your tribe, which will result in word-of-mouth recommendations and repeat visits. The brand value is built through the value that you deliver at the event, which could be as little as providing value through a networking platform. But real loyalty comes when you can actually create unique and memorable experiences. And this leads us in to the building of the event. So that's pretty much all there is for this section, but let's go through our checklist. So we've thought about the why of your event. We've thought about who your main audience is and how you will communicate to them about attending. Now we need to get into the meat of planning your event. And the first part now is determining when the event should take place and how long it should last. Now, event producers who are familiar with the cadence of an in-person physical event are often curious and ask us whether there are similar optimal times and durations for online events. There's no exact science in answering this question. However, there are some guiding principles which must be considered. In-person events will often require an attendee to take time out from their usual schedule. It might include travel and booking accommodation, and if this is the case for a significant portion of your audience, then it's often wise to make the hassle involved in travel and staying away from home worth it. You, as the event producer, must be concerned with the creation of space in the event, time for networking and meeting, as well as determining the potential for curated moments in plenary sessions which unite the messaging and can mobilize your entire audience. Now, hybrid events, online and in person, typically have the same considerations as in-person events, as it mirrors the in-person event experience. Now, it often comes as a surprise to first-time hybrid event producers that the people attending the online portion of the event are actually physically present at the event. They may have other commitments, or they may be in a hotel room, and they don't want to miss out on certain parts of the event. It may be that they missed a plenary session because of an offline meeting, and they are catching up with the flow of the event. The bottom line with hybrid events is that you should simply mirror the in-person schedule. Exclusively online events may be treated slightly differently. Since they don't require attendees to take time off work, one more significant consideration is that attendees may only be joining outside of work hours, unless, of course, you're hosting a work event, in which case holding it within typical working hours becomes optimal. Many in-person expo-type events have very little main stage time and spread the event over a number of days so that attendees can network, have offline business meetings, grab a coffee or lunch together. These same components are not all present with online events. The event isn't constrained by a physical place, and therefore the times when aspects of the event happen will differ. It's important that you give thoughts to when your main plenaries in a virtual event happen for this very reason. If you typically have longer, more drawn-out plenaries, you may think about condensing your main program slightly time-wise. I might add that it's important not to swing the pendulum too far in the other direction. It's not unusual for our project managers to advise clients on the need to actually include breaks in their schedule when they have multiple back-to-back one-hour sessions. In addition, while you can't grab lunch with someone online, there are still numerous networking tools that should be factored in your event. Maybe give thought to how your event can be more than a simple one-way broadcast. The question remains, when should you schedule certain components within maybe a multi-day event? Now, there are no hard and fast rules. You know your audience, and we can have constructive conversation about that. But we typically see a few general rules that are different than in person. We often see spikes at the beginning of an online event in a much greater way than we would in an in-person where people may arrive late. And then, as with in-person event, we will see spikes when top bill presenters, music acts, or VIPs are on stage. And so hopefully that's helpful as you start planning and thinking about the timing and the duration of your event. So that's pretty much all there is for this section. So let's go through our checklist. Whether you're having an entirely in-person, a hybrid, or an exclusively virtual event, there are a number of questions that you need to answer. One of the first questions is related to venue and production. Often this seems to be answered more easily for in-person than online events. It's natural that if you're having an event for, say, 15 people, you may choose to have it in a boardroom and ensure there are enough snacks and refreshments in the room for the duration of the meeting. And then if you're having a 15,000 person event, you're going to rent an arena with adequate audio-visual production so that the audience doesn't have any challenges with seeing or hearing what is going on. Now, similar principles are true for online events, and yet sometimes the production elements for online events are not thought through thoroughly. WebRTC, that's Web Real-Time Conversations, and other video conferencing applications that you'll be aware of are amazing tools for real-time interactions. However, their strength is in connecting individuals through low-latency video connections. And that's usually for small numbers of people and not for broadcasting a high-quality message to thousands. Now, if you're having a 15-person boardroom meeting and you wish to take it online, then utilizing such WebRTC, Zoom-type applications is the right choice. If you're broadcasting a message to thousands, however, using a low-latency application is probably not the right choice.